Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of HorrorHands. I just got in from work nice and early, so I got a bit of time to talk about the movies that I've watched recently. And the first one I've watched is The Thing from Another World. And this is going to be a little bit of a difficult review for me because I have to confess, I only watched this for the first time the other night. However, I am a huge fan of the John Carpenter 80s version of The Thing. It's like my second favourite movie ever made, and I've watched it countless amount of times. So when talking about this movie, I need to try and keep in mind that this was the original from the 50s and try not to compare it to the original, to the 80s version. You see, I think John Carpenter's the original. Try not to compare it to the 80s version, which I'm going to do a little bit, but it's important for me to keep in mind that this was the first film, if that makes sense. So this was from 1951, and it's very much in keeping with the 50s movies of that time in terms of alien invasion and saucermen and things like that. So it takes place in the Antarctic. It's a bunch of research scientists, same as the John Carpenter one. And they find an alien craft in the ice. They blow the ice up, get the spacecraft out, and it's housing this man-like figure that turns out to be an alien being. And this one, it drains its victims of blood in order to preserve itself or keep itself going. And the scientists have to try and find a way to destroy it. So, in terms of a 1950s film, I thought it was really well made. It's really well in the way that it tells the story, and it really does kind of keep you gripped, and you sort of wonder kind of what's going to happen next. Like, where's the thing going to strike from, and what's going to happen? So, I thought it was really good in its build up and its setup. I also really liked the North Pole location of this movie. It's kind of, I don't see that in a lot of films from the 1950s. They kind of all take place in like towns or urban locations, that kind of thing. And this felt a bit different because it was out of the way. I thought it's more, this film is more focused on the science fiction aspect of it, whereas John Carpenter's remake was very much about the horror and the terror and sort of the claustrophobia. This one is very much more scientific, and there's a lot of talk about sort of theorizing how the thing got here, why it does what it does, how it does what it does. So there's a lot of dialogue and science fiction-y talk, which I thought was okay. And then there's a few cool sort of moments at the end when the thing kind of shows itself and attacks the base and tries to attack the people in it. So, in terms of similarities with the 80s version, which, like I say, is one of my favourite movies of all time, the story is quite similar, although it's not a shape-shifting alien like it is in the 80s version. The location is the same, but apart from that, it kind of, that's where the similarities kind of end. Like I say, there's much more focus on science fiction and the science behind the alien that there is in the 80s version. There's also a lot less of the creature in the 1950s version. He only really comes out at the end of the film, and we only sort of get short bursts of the creature. And when he comes into the film, it is really effective because quite a few times you don't expect him to be there, and they'll like open the door and he's there, and he'll lunge at them and things like that. And it was quite jumpy, which again for a 1950s film you don't see all that much. What's also different about this? Oh yeah, so there's very different in terms of cast and characters. In this 1950s one, there's a lot of people in the film. there's about 20 or 30 people that seem to reside in this research facility. It feels more like a community than a small manned research station. There's a lot of people walking around, and they all kind of sort of follow each other in droves as the film goes on, as they go into different rooms, and there's like just a mass of people following each other. So there's a lot more people in it, but I'd say only about 5 or 6 are prominent characters. The others kind of act as almost like extras that kind of make up bodies in this film. So I didn't think it had as good characterization as the 80s version. The 80s version has like 10, 12 people in the film, and they all mean something. We all know who they are and what they do, and each one kind of brings something to the film, whereas the 50s version didn't quite have that for me. I also thought that there was a bit of a missed opportunity because this film didn't have the claustrophobic feel or the paranoia that the John Carpenter film had. This one just doesn't go there. It doesn't have those kind of themes. But then again, for a 1950s film, those themes weren't quite prominent in these kind of movies. So I can see why they weren't there, and I can't really criticise it for not being like a film that hadn't happened yet. So that's fair enough. And what else was I going to say about this movie? I think that was about it in terms of comparisons. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good film, and just taking away the 80s thing, strictly as a 1950s film, I thought it was very enjoyable. I did think the creature was killed a little bit too easily. Sorry, I should have said spoiler alert, but I did think they killed it off somewhat too easily, but you know, it is what it is, and credit to them because it was a really cool looking thing. James Arness, who plays the thing, does a really good job, albeit it doesn't do too much, but it's enough, if that makes sense. He has a very imposing presence, so I would have liked to have seen a bit more of him in the film. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a bit of a strange experience because it is like watching the 80s version kind of condensed into a 50s version, and even like the locations, they look exactly the same. The two movies look like they're filmed in exactly the same place. So like the exterior shots of the research station and the interior shots of like the corridors with the boxes stacked up and the barrels piled in the corners, they look very, very similar. So it was a bit of a strange experience seeing such a similar film, but then again, they are based on the same story, and one is a remake of the other. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I would probably give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10. But if you like your 50s films, I would certainly recommend this one because it is one of the best made of the lot. So thank you for watching, and let me know what you think, and stay tuned for more videos.